you for those who have signed in. Welcome. It's Wellbeing Wednesday, and we are going to be discussing today improving wellbeing, building resilience, and reducing stress. And I have been joined by the wonderful Laura Palabra from Stress Matters, Ken Kenning from A Sense of Purpose, and Kat Khan from T. Rowe Price. And we're just going to be chatting about sort of stress in these times and some of the things that might be causing one stress, and building resilience to try and overcome that stress, and in building resilience, improving our well-being. And in fact, we were just talking about there the things that we miss being in lockdown and in isolation. And human connection was one of the things that we were talking about, and sort of having a face-to-face conversation. So please have a think, guys, about the things that you're missing in isolation. You can put something in the chat, or you can send something through the Q&A function. And with that, I am going to ask each panelist just to do a brief intro. So I'm going to go to Laura first.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Laura Palabra. I am from the events industry. I've been in the events industry for 17, 18, something or other years. And I used to be agency side. And a few years ago, I left to set up a coaching and development company called No More Ifs or Buts. And then a couple of years ago, set up an organisation called Stress Matters, where we look at workplace wellbeing, in particular in the events industry or for event professionals. But as with all things, that's spread out slightly more now. So I like to spend a lot of my time talking to people about how we can look at the stresses that are in our lives, and how we can kind of make changes in the way we see things, or make changes to the way we approach things to try and improve our well-being, not only for ourselves, but also within our teams and within our organisations as well.
Thanks, Laura. Ken, to you, please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ken Kelling. My career background, I guess, over 20 years in communications, PR and events. And up until last year, I was working for a PR agency called Davis Tanner, who specialise in working with clients within the events industry. But I've actually been a coach, a life coach as well, since 2014, 2015. As of last year, I actually left the PR side of things and am now full-time coaching and mentoring. And I guess my kind of topic of interest, as per my company title, which is Sense of Purpose, is around talking about helping people to find a kind of greater sense of purpose from their work, their life, their career, whatever it is. But generally interested in well-being, in stress management, and resilience, like we're going to talk about today. And throughout the course of coronavirus, I've been trying to blog on and talk about positive things that I see out there going on in the events industry, as well as the stress, the uncertainty, and employment issues that everybody's going through at the same time. That's me.
Thanks, Ken. And Kat, last but not least.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Katrina Khan. I have been in the events industry for about 15 years in one way, shape or form, whether that was studying at university, running some charity events, being in venues and hotels. And in the last 7 years, I think, 8 years now, I've spent in finance events. So I work for a big asset management firm and head up the EMEA team there. And I come from a point of view where exercise and nutrition play a huge role in strength and stress management, especially in an industry as busy and as crazy and demanding as ours can be. So I think, James, we connected last year, roughly a year ago, at IMEX in Frankfurt, exactly on this topic, stress management. And we sort of talked a lot about how we manage stress and how we build resilience. And I think it's just been a conversation that's been going on ever since. So to me, I've been through a fair few traumatic experiences in my personal life. And I've always found that exercise and nutrition and keeping a healthy body has enabled me to also strengthen my mind. And so I think that's been the foundation for me. And I think that's incredibly important in the current situation that we're in, because we all face different issues, whether we have a family with screaming children at home and we can't take time out, or whether we are sitting at home by ourselves and don't have anybody but our plants and walls to talk to. So yeah, that's where I come from my experience.
Thanks, Kat. So tonight's sort of chosen topic, slightly flexed because I made a mistake last week. To those who tried to sign on last week, technical problems, which was basically my bad, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I do apologise. I've noticed lots of sort of event industry events and things like that, people talking about resilience and in the context of the event industry, and I guess now more than ever sort of finding some resilience to help reduce stress, because I think, you know, stress can affect us in a number of ways, and I think building resilience helps reduce our stress and improve our overall well-being, be it mental or physical. So I guess the first question I have is, what is resilience? Laura, what is resilience?
Resilience is our kind of ability to bounce back when things happen. So those of us that have lower resilience, we might find negative things that happen in our life a little bit more challenging to move beyond. And those that have higher resilience are the people that actually can move on quicker with whatever it is they're doing. And it's not necessarily carrying on the same path. It might be changing path slightly, but being able to move forward in a situation is the way I normally kind of look at resilience.
And you and I have spoken about this before, actually, Laura. So I have a belief that on some level, we all have resilience within us. But for some of us, myself included, that needs to be unlocked. And you've described it as it can be sort of a learned behaviour. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so quite often when we think about resilience, we refer to it as a bit like what we call a stress container. So this idea that our resilience is this container that can be big or small. So you'll meet some people that seem to be able to take on loads of bad stuff, loads of stuff seem to happen to them, and they seem to have a really positive mindset and seem to be in a, you know, what appears to be quite a good place and dealing with everything quite well. And those people that might be back in the day when we could be outside of our houses, might be driving down the street and someone cuts them up at a roundabout, and it really throws them. And that level of resilience to things that happen varies between people. And what we can do in terms of building our resilience is putting coping strategies in place to help us, when we refer to a stress container, remove some of that stress from the stress container. So coping strategies, I'm sure, you know, everybody's got some, and it sounds like Kat can give us some great advice in terms of exercise and nutrition. But the coping strategies, we quite often will think about them as macro and micro. So you've got your macro coping strategies, which would be things like lifestyle, exercise, nutrition. And then your micro strategies that will help you in the moment. So that's things like breathing techniques, for example, that might help bring that stress level down. And the more you build them into your day-to-day routine, and the more they just become part of your life, that's when your resilience can grow. Okay.
Resilience, I remember once when I was going through a bad time myself, and someone said, "Oh, you're very resilient." I was like, "Well, how have you worked that out?" Because obviously I was feeling sorry for myself in a bad time, but it's amazing how if you keep doing things, you know, sort of repeated practice, it does come out. And a word you mentioned that was coping strategies. And Kat, I wanted to put it to you as a corporate event professional on lockdown. How are you coping? How's your team coping? You know, what do you do to sort of stay sane, try and find some balance, try and, you know, reduce stress if you start to feel stressed? What have you been doing?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So my company has about 7,000 employees, and I think roughly 6,500 of them are currently working from home. So the large proportion of the company was moved into a work from home state in the space of a few days, which is quite an amazing feat. And obviously that can be quite a shock to both the individual, but also to the community as the company that you have. So from a team perspective, so I head up a team and I'm part of a large team as well. So I head up the event side, but we are part of the marketing department. And so as soon as we all went to lockdown, I made sure I put in a 15-minute checkup with my team members every single day. And even if you just take 5 minutes, it's just that, 9:15 a.m. call that makes you get out of bed. That means that it's there and you have to be there. And there was one day when one of my direct reports had phone issues, and I didn't know this until later, but I couldn't get hold of her. And I was like, it's 9:30 and I can't get hold of her. What's wrong with her? And I realized that also I have no way of checking in with her because I don't know her flatmates. And there's limited ways that you can find somebody if you don't have, we don't have landlines anymore. I don't know her parents. So these are concerns that we didn't necessarily have when we were in an office. So yeah, put that in straight away. As a team, we've actually been very good with having, virtual drinks at the end of the week, just to connect for half an hour. And they're voluntary. You don't have to come in. You can drop in and out if you want to. I myself have set up, because I'm a qualified yoga instructor, I've set up twice weekly yoga classes for my colleagues. So they send me a disclaimer and then they can join, and it's whether they want to or not. And sometimes people turn up and sometimes they don't. But that's just something that I can do. And that gives me a purpose and helps me because I have something to plan. I have a reason to be there at 7:45 in the morning, but also that's something for them to connect with. And then one of my other friends, he's a painter. So he's actually running virtual painting classes for both the adults, but also for the kids that are stuck at home with their parents. So as a group, we've managed to come up with some ways to connect. And some people are more inclined to join these than others, right? As a wider company, we are very lucky to have an extremely good corporate culture. So they are very keen to connect with us. We have town hall calls with senior leadership where we can actively ask questions. And again, we're very lucky with our senior leadership having agreed to answer any question that comes through. So you can pose anything to them and they have promises they will answer. So even if they don't have an answer at the time, they will address it in some way. So that, again, we're very, very lucky in that respect. And there's been a real community feel, but it doesn't mean that it's not hard, right? And as I said earlier, some people are stuck at home with families and they have screaming children and they have to deal with schooling those kids at the same time as working. And let's face it, working hours have gone out the window, right? I start emailing at 6 a.m. in the morning and then maybe I sign off at 5 and then I come back at 8 for calls until 10:30. They've gone out the window because everybody is working from home. And there's also this pull. You can't just leave the office and leave it behind. There's this constant pull that your computer is there, your laptop's there, your phone is there. You can't really switch off. And there isn't even an expectation necessarily, but we all have this, I suppose, need sometimes to prove, I'm still here, I'm working. Even though I'm at home, I'm still working. And so I think that it's really difficult to step away from that. And you need to make sure you do that and you take that time. So I'm actually conveniently sitting in front of my weekly exercise schedule. So I actually sit down on Sunday nights and I write out what I'm going to do that week. And it just means I have that there and it reminds me every day. And I go past it when I go to the fridge. Ironically, my exercise schedule is on the fridge. And I'm just reminded that, hey, at 5:30, I need to be on this yoga class this evening.
Yeah. Thanks, Kat. I think you've raised some really important points, really, and actually something that came out for me when you were talking was communication, and how actually some people I've spoken to from the EMA membership and others that are actually that communication with their teams and with others, friends and families, actually got better, not face to face, but obviously better. They're making more of an effort, which I think is fantastic. And I hope that sort of that level of communication continues. And I think we're getting to know each other in a work sense better. Like, I can see your fridge, and I can see Laura's spare bedroom, and I can see whatever room Ken is in. We take a little step into everyone's world.
Well, I think that's one thing, James. But I think, sorry, if I just may add one thing. The other thing here is, because you're not seeing somebody on a daily basis, you can't assess how they're feeling, what they may be going through, how, whether they've slept badly or they're having a bad day. And we're not overhearing those little conversations they may be having with a friend at work either. So, for example, if somebody has recently died, which is entirely possible in this current environment, you don't know why somebody's not getting back to you. So our conversations have to adjust. It can't be, let's just go through this to-do list, thank you very much, and go. It has to be, okay, so how was your evening? What did you get up to? Just to establish that rapport, because we don't have that face-to-face anymore. You don't say good morning to everybody that you see when you come through the door in the office.
Yeah, I think you're right. And in fact, one of the points I put in my musings that I sent out to you earlier was of changing lifestyle, and how do we adapt to that? Ken, what are your thoughts on how we adapt effectively?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on from the last kind of bit of the chat, which is really about the importance of conversation. It was something we were talking about earlier, because one of the best things that I decided to do, the most enjoyable and the most productive, was just ring some people up and say, how you doing? And to Kat's point about those missing snippets that you might normally get. And I didn't, it wasn't work related. It wasn't, there were work contacts and colleagues, but I just rang them up and said, just want to check in, see how you're doing. And that was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. So I'd really recommend, if you're thinking of someone, you haven't been in touch with someone for a while, just give them a call, because they'll love it. And you will go through all sorts of things in your head about why you shouldn't ring them or whatever, but just do it. And, they're really great conversations. And for me, that stems back to resilience, because, one of the key things about staying resilient is human connection, because that's what keeps us grounded, and it works both ways. So if someone rings you up out of the blue, that's great, because, we want to feel that we matter. We really want this, a basic human need to feel that we matter. And, in this kind of situation where it's all uncertain and you haven't heard from people or you're not sure, that kind of thing can prey on your mind quite a lot. Do I still really count? Are people still thinking of me? And just hearing someone ring you up, just have a chat, I think, is a key part of resilience.
Isn't this is a wonderful time, isn't it, actually, in terms of the opportunities here? There's a massive opportunity to really build our support networks that we can utilize, hopefully, effectively after this is over. So if we are struggling in any way, shape or form, we've got those secure support networks, and we feel confident to phone someone up or Zoom someone or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and people will remember that. We're all going to remember the people that rang us up just to say how you do. Absolutely, and that, and even if that's someone who you don't feel that well, that's going to be a key moment in time, in a particular situation in time, that he or she is going to remember, and that you remember as well. And when you get back to the face-to-face stuff, as we all, as we're all wanting, that's part of cementing that relationship. And it's not to do with the to-do list necessarily, or work, or finding work. It's just, staying in touch with people. And that's, as we hear all the time, that's what the meetings industry and the events industry is all about. It's connection between people, and that's perhaps why there's a lot out there about how our industry and our people may be better at staying resilient than others, because it becomes more natural and more instinctive to us, perhaps.
Yeah, I think we're a pretty resilient bunch of people. I like to think so, anyway.
Can I just mention something? Just because Laura mentioned the phrase "bounce back," and I kid you not, this book is on my desk.
What's the book about?
It's really great. It came out last year. It's called Bounce Back. It's how to fail fast and be resilient at work. And it's by Susan Khan, and it only came out last year. It's a really great book. This can be a tip, because really easy to read book, going through things like, what is resilience, the kind of things we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's got some nice little activities at the end of each chapter, some self-tests and all that rest. So classic kind of self-help book style, but I actually thought it was really comprehensive. So, if you're wanting to kind of think about resilience a bit further, Bounce Back by Susan Khan. And I've had it here as inspiration ever since the COVID-19 all kicked off because I thought that's probably going to be quite a good book to have.
Yeah, there's going to be some bouncing back.
The ideas, yeah.
Ken, I wanted to ask about purpose briefly, and how you are a purpose coach. You help people find their purpose, and how finding one's purpose can help with resilience, especially in a time like this, in the context of coronavirus and COVID-19.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I could tie it back to resilience again, while we're on that theme, the first thing that always comes up for me with resilience is to Kat's point about exercise, is about an athlete. And, most athletes or other people who are involved will say that there are always going to be moments where they fail, they stumble, they fall over, or whatever. And, resilience is about getting back up again. Resilience is about taking that stuff, getting back up and keeping going. And, a key part of that is the idea that you have a purpose, as someone doing any form of exercise, whether that's, the marathon or whatever. You've got something in mind, you've got a vision, you've got a goal, you've got somewhere that you want to get to. And that's, that level of purpose, and that's just, a metaphor and an allegory, but that level of mindset about where you're trying to get to, and what it is that drives you at the core of you, and how you want to serve people and how you want to kind of be with others. I think that can make a huge difference at times like this. So yeah, again, it's been something I've been trying to kind of play back in terms of both positivity that I see out there. But you look at the purpose that people have found from the events industry about something like Light It Blue. All these live event production guys, who are, and I know some of them are out of work, they have no work, but nevertheless, they thought, how can we use our collective skills, find a purpose around, celebrating the NHS and make that happen, and they've done an extraordinary job out of that. So it's something that's instinctive to us, having a purpose. I mean, Laura was talking earlier about delivering stuff. My wife's involved locally in the community and packaging stuff up and getting it out, and it's everywhere now. That kind of that desire to find a purpose and a meaning. And I really hope that kind of that feeling continues after all this is gone, because harnessing our individual and our collective purpose can be immensely strong, and not just for us as individuals, but for society and the way we're going with changes in the world anyway. And I'm really hopeful that we've sort of got something here now that we can continue to apply the next few decades, because things are going to get tough in the environment, and I think we're all seeing that. So our individual and our collective purpose, I think, is front and center in the discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's I like the way you use it and talk about an athlete and people, they fall down, they get up, and they keep on going and being able to bounce back. Now, what I want to do is, because we're sort of 25 minutes in, we did have some questions sent in by some of the lovely people who registered, and some of them are quite, I think, really, they're very relevant. So one of the questions that was sent in is, how do you recognise the difference between being very busy and very stressed? And I guess it goes back to something you mentioned, Kat, about there's sort of there's no strict framework. We're not going to the office and leaving the office. We're at home and our family time and our all of this stuff. It's all one big blur. How do we work out what's being busy and what's being stressed? So which one of you, Laura, have you got something you think, because you talk about fluid working. Mm-hmm. And so what are your thoughts on differentiating busy and stress?
I think when it doesn't feel good. I think we've all probably been busy and actually had a really good day, and it might be pre-show and you're busy, but you've got adrenaline pumping through you and you're excited. And all those people that say I work well under pressure, that's that moment. It's when you're busy, there's lots of things happening, and that pressure is spurring you on to do things. Going from busy to stressed is when it's not good. So actually, if you're busy and you physically don't feel well, you're getting a headache, or you're feeling some kind of impact in your body, or if you're maybe getting a bit frozen because you're so overwhelmed by the fact that you've got this long list of stuff in front of you and you're busy but you don't know where to start, when it starts having a negative impact is when I would say it's moving into stress. And, you know, we can pull back from stress with those coping strategies and things that I mentioned before. But I would normally say that's the difference. When we're under pressure and when we're feeling the adrenaline, when we're feeling good about it, there's nothing wrong with being busy. Lots of people like being busy. And particularly in this industry, we kind of have to like being busy. But it's when it moves into, I don't feel good. And whatever, physically or emotionally, it doesn't matter where that feeling is coming from. This doesn't feel good is normally because I'm stressed.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it being frozen. That's a massive tell for me. Having a long list and actually thinking I'm busy, but actually never getting anything done because it's all just too much. And so yeah, that's a good tell for me. And how do we tell? So not just us, the individual, but how do we know when maybe our teams are feeling stressed? And in this time, because it's as Kat, again, as you pointed out, it's really difficult sort of just through the medium of the screen, because you don't sense the energy of people. You don't, you know, so how do we find out how our teams are really doing and you know, and how stressed they are and therefore therefore we're able to make adjustments for them?
I think, James, as you say, it's very difficult right now to know. So my policy has been, if in doubt, prescribe more breaks. So even give them the choice. I think it's more important right now to enable people and empower people to feel like they can take those breaks. Even if they don't need them, they may not even take them, but them knowing that their manager, in my case, for example, has told them, make sure you take breaks, makes them feel enabled to do that when they need it. It's impossible for me to know exactly what they're getting up to. I can have conversations with them as much as I want, and you know, they may just be a really good liar and just never tell me anything, and they might be feeling really stressed. All I can do is make sure that they feel I support them in whatever they need.
Okay. Yeah, and I think, you know, prescribing breaks is, I'd love.
So when I say prescribe, I mean like take breaks. I don't mean like from 1 o'clock until 1:15, you will have a break.
You know, that would be a prescription I'd like, just normally, just take breaks. And actually, there are different ways.
Can I add a couple more in, James? Sorry.
Well, yeah, so what I was actually going to ask, based on that as one way of helping people, a question that was asked is if one is feeling stressed in the moment, what can we do in this scenario? So, Laura, what would you suggest in terms of how can we relieve stress? I'm feeling stressed right now. What would you tell me to do? Can I
backtrack slightly? Because I just want to give two more suggestions that I think might help.
No real
So just following on from what Kat said about being that supportive person, I think another really good thing is simply to ask and to say to that person that you're working with, how are you feeling today? You know, are you okay? Are you coping with the workload? So actually asking, I think, is completely acceptable to do, and it helps bring that connection and relationship closer anyway. And another key tell is to just look out for changes in behavior. So obviously it is hard because we're in a completely different environment, but you know, if you've got team members that are suddenly not hitting the deadlines that normally they're really good at, or if they're asking you to approve work where they would normally just do it themselves. So if they're changing the way that they're working, again, that's something just to look out for. So I know, for example, if I'm feeling quite stressed, I lose confidence in my ability to write, for example. So at that point, my poor husband has to read every single thing I write, blog-wise. He knows I can write, I know I can write, but in that moment when I'm feeling stressed, I need somebody else to check it. So the fact that I don't normally ask, but then when I do ask, it's quite an obvious thing then to go, okay, there's a change in behavior. So you have to be really in tune with how your team members are normally acting, and if they're normally morning people or evening people, and kind of, so it's a really good way to kind of calibrate it all. But it is that change in behavior that we can pick up on if we look for it. It's obviously really easy to miss, but if we can look for it, that's another way to tell. But to your point, to the question you actually asked me, which was how can you help in the moment? It's completely personal. So, you know, it's very much about what that person needs in the moment. So some people need to step away from a situation to help clear their heads when they're feeling stressed. So it might be that physically shutting the laptop, going and sitting in another room, being quiet. Some people it will be go for a run, do some exercise, do some stretching, do something physical that's going to put a different kind of focus for you. And that can be mindful activities as well. So is it a case that actually you want to go and listen to the birds singing outside, or you want to listen to some music, and so you kind of change what you're auditory listening to? And so it will completely vary per person. So for me, I know that if I'm getting stressed about something, I just need to walk away from it. I need to go and do something completely opposite. Whatever it is I'm doing, I need to do something as opposite as if I physically can. And then I can come back 5 minutes, doesn't even have to be that long later, 5 minutes later, and I'm normally a little bit clearer on what the situation is. But some people don't feel comfortable stepping away, and actually they need to be in it until they find the solution, and then they can relieve the stress afterwards. So everybody's different. And back to what I was saying kind of about calibration of your team, it's a really important thing to do on yourself. So if you know that you're feeling quite stressed, and whatever that kind of physical or emotional feeling is that you get when you're stressed, identifying that and just keeping a track in your head, or written down if you want, about what if I do this, do I feel better or worse? So if I do step away, or I go and drink a glass of water, or I go and talk to a friend or family member for 10 minutes, does that make me feel better in that moment? Yes. Okay. So that's a really positive thing for me to remember, that next time I feel like that helped. So just keeping that log of, okay, what happens when I'm feeling stressed, and actually when does that change? Do I feel better or worse in certain situations? And as I said, just kind of calibrating ourselves of, you know, was that good for me or not?
Some really nice advice there. I think noticing it, because by noticing it, by logging it, helps with our own self-awareness, which is really important. And again, in turn, if we're aware of self, we will find it easier to be more aware of our teams and their needs. Ken, when you are feeling stressed in the moment, what works for you?
Oh, it's definitely stepping back. You know, I mean, I guess I'm lucky. I've got quite a calm temperament. There's not too much that kind of bothers me. But if it is feeling like piling on, I think there's two things that I do. So to Laura's point, I'm the kind of person who needs to step away, I think, and find nature. Nature is brilliant for me. Just going out, birds, trees, wherever they are, just kind of that reconnection. You know, if it's in a park or whatever, nature really works for me in terms of that decompression. And the other thing that again Laura was hinting on and has become something of a cliche, which is a shame, but I think is really important, is this idea of looking after yourself so you can look after others. You know, the old put your oxygen mask on before helping others. And I know you hear it a lot, but I think it's really, really true, because that helps me to realize I'm only really going to be at my best, and I'm only going to be able to serve other people if I'm not feeling like this. And actually I feel that gives me permission to go and do what I need to do.
I think that's a really important point, Ken. It's that whole being selfish to be selfless.
Yeah.
Because we could do a million things for other people and not look after ourselves, and then we end up being no good to anyone. And I mean, it's sort of given my history, that's sort of a mantra that I live by. If I don't look after me, then how am I going to be there for my children and my family? And it's just, I won't be. So I think that's a really important point about, you know, looking after ourselves. And, you know, we hear the word self-care used all the time in the world, but actually they are two very, very, very important words, I think. And Kat, what do you do if you're stressed in the moment going, what do you do?
I know you want me to say I go for a 15K run, but that's not always possible.
Okay, that's one thing.
So I actually place a lot of emphasis on prevention. So for me, it's actually keeping that routine that prevents me from going quite as crazy in those moments and allows me to be a little bit more resilient, a little bit more flexible, a little bit more adaptable in those situations. And I feel real different. So I take breaks from running because otherwise my body will not forgive me. And I notice a difference in how I feel and what my stress levels are like on the days when I didn't have my morning run. So that's definitely one thing for me is prevention. And it goes for exercise and it goes for nutrition as well. So I think, again, if you know that you have a stressful period ahead of you, I tend to reduce I don't drink that much anyway, but tend to reduce my alcohol intake because I know that I tend to be more on edge if I'm hungover or something. So I look at it mindfully beforehand. In terms of in the moment, I'm like you guys, I need to step away. I don't necessarily need to go into nature, but I find the physical moving away from the desk or the problem or whatever it is at the time and taking some fresh air really helps. So taking those deep breaths, because when we get stressed, we tend to change our breathing pattern. And that actually makes it worse. So we tend to then go to chest breathing only. And it makes our system go into that stress mode even more. So stepping away and taking some of those full deep breaths all the way down into the belly, I find that really helps. It calms down the nervous system. There are actually some breathing techniques in yoga pranayama that you can do to really balance out that system again. So whether it's alternate nostril breathing, for example, or cooling breath. Cooling breath is a great thing to do when you're stressed or when you're getting really heated. So you just basically curl your tongue and suck the air in through the curled tongue, and it comes in as cool breath, and it instantly cools down your entire system. So I find that really helps.
I think that's, I think that there's a common thread. Actually, I'm the same. I have to step away. I take some breaths, and actually then I try and sort of reframe it. Quite often I notice myself, I'm looking at a list going, oh my God, I've got so much to do. But so much of it is really future focused. Whereas in fact, it's like, well, what can I do now? And as soon as I really focus on the now, or if I do that and then I do that, then funnily enough, the stress dissipates. And it's like, oh, I'm back in the game again. But I think breathing can be really powerful. And it doesn't take very long it doesn't take very long to step away from what you're doing for just a minute, 2 minutes. So I'm a huge advocate of that. Now we are coming to, I can't believe it, we're 41 minutes in, we're coming to the end, guys. Can you believe it? I hope to those that have been listening, watching, this has been useful. I could talk about this stuff all day long and it would be very boring, I'm sure, but I don't care. But what I'd love a sort of a closing thought from each of you. Ken, give us a closing thought. What sort of piece of advice or wisdom can you give to those that are listening?
I think I just go back to what I was saying earlier about just phoning someone that you haven't spoken to for a while and just checking in with them and seeing how that goes. And then if it works out the way that I hope it will work out, that actually both of you feel the benefit of doing that, then just keep doing it. Because I think, throughout all of this, the theme of human connection is probably the biggest thing for all of us. And yeah, phone a friend, one tip.
Okay. Laura.
That's a good one. I love good kindness. I would say look for the opportunities. It's really easy to see all the bad side of everything that's happening at the moment if you want to, but actually in that reframing that you were just mentioning there, James, actually seeing things as an opportunity to improve situations, whether or not it's improve that relationship with somebody you haven't spoken to for a while, whether or not it's a chance to do tasks around the house because you're here quite a lot, or whether or not it's an opportunity to improve a process. Whatever it is, try and see things as opportunities right now rather than things that you can't do.
Yeah, I think that's really important, isn't it? And actually, I know as part of Stress Matters on your Instagram, you're doing, as it's Stress Awareness Month, you've been doing something every day on your Insta stories, and something that's come up, which is really is sort of really poignant for me, is gratitude, being grateful for what we have, rather than worrying about the things we don't have, because it just really reframes and refocuses the mind. And actually, I bleat on about this all the time, but they've done studies that, by focusing on gratitude and being grateful, it reprograms our brains and improves mood and all of that sort of stuff. So opportunities and gratitude, I think, is a fantastic point. Kat, what about you? What would you like to share?
So I fundamentally agree with both of what you said. I think for me, it would be find your balance. So find something that works for you. For me, it's exercise. For you, it may be reading or music or, painting, whatever it is. Find something that makes you happy and do that. Find time to do it. And then also find time to break. Take a break from work, from doing those things, from learning a new language, from everything that you have on your to-do list for this. And don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel guilty to take that time away for yourself and come back refreshed and able to help with other people and to speak to other people. I took a screen-free day last Friday, just shut everything off. All of my screens were off. They went into a room, didn't touch them for a day. And I kept having this worry throughout the day thinking, what if somebody needs to get hold of me? And I was like, well, actually, I can't go and see them anyway. I can't help them physically. So they're just going to have to deal with 12 hours of me not being online. And that's okay.
Do you know what? That's a great thing as well. Tech detox. I'm a huge fan. Because actually, the one thing I found, I don't know about you guys, is since doing everything virtually, I just feel a bit more addicted to my screens now, which, funnily enough, stresses me out a little bit. Now, Laura, one question I have for you is support. What support is out there?
Loads of support. So a couple of things that Stress Matters are doing at the moment is we have a peer-to-peer support program called Buddies Matter. So it's open to anybody in the events industry, whether or not you're in-house, agency, exhibition, supplier, it doesn't matter, and open across the world as well. That basically we're matching people in the events industry with another person in the events industry as a support buddy. So it's that idea that you might not feel comfortable talking to your colleagues. Hopefully cultures are changing and people are being a bit more open. But if you're having a bit of a rubbish day and you want to talk to somebody that gets it a little bit more than maybe a friend or family member, and you might not want to share with your colleague, somebody else in the industry that has a little bit of a knowledge of what you're going through, that isn't a therapist, you're both just there to just check in. So to Ken's comment about asking how you're doing, that's it. It's literally just a buddy that you're just occasionally, doesn't have to be daily, doesn't have to be weekly even, it's literally just every so often when you think of that person, you send them a message, give them a ring, whatever it is, to give them a little nudge and say, hey, how's it going? Are you okay? I haven't heard from you in a while. So that's available. So please sign up, send it out to all of your colleagues as well. It's completely free. And then the other thing that we have available for those people that need a little bit more support than a buddy or a work colleague is we're running a support line. So there's a support line for people in the events industry, again, any part of the industry, that is being manned by volunteers in the industry who are mental health first aider trained. So they're there, they're not they're not therapists, they're not professional in that sense. We're hoping to get funding from associations to be able to do that, but they're just somebody there who has a little bit more training around listening non-judgmentally, signposting to the appropriate kind of medical supports and professional services that are out there. So it's that somebody you can talk to. It's completely confidential, so it doesn't matter what you talk to them about, whether or not it's about financial worries, whether or not you're on furlough, whether or not you're fully employed or made redundant, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Whether or not the stress is about something at home rather than work, there's no kind of concern about anything like that. It's about helping that person in the moment. So there's a couple of services that are there available to everyone in the industry, and then we're running a series of webinars again to help people around working from home and also how to manage and lead during a crisis as well. So there's loads of kind of services available, so check out the Stress Matters social accounts that you mentioned earlier, and all of that's on there as well.
Yeah, and if anyone does have any questions, they can email me at james at ema-uk.com. Nearly forgot my email address. And also one last plug. So Kat, you mentioned earlier that you are doing some private, you're doing some yoga classes, and you have very kindly offered to run a Friday morning yoga class for the EMA. And I called it really catchily EMA Yoga with Kat. And so for those that are watching, if you fancy some yoga, Kat is running a yoga session this Friday at 8 a.m. It is 8 a.m., isn't it? Kat, give us a sort of, tell us about the yoga session.
Oh gosh, put me on the spot now. It's going to be, I mean, it would be great to know beforehand what experience other people have, if they have been able to give that when they register. But otherwise, it's going to be suitable for all levels. It's going to be a slow flow class just to see how everybody's feeling. It's early in the morning, it's Friday, end of the week. And I'll be giving options for both beginners and more intermediate students. So yeah, it'd be great to have a good number of people. It's nice to see everybody sort of getting into the spirit and participating. So it's a great thing to do. I've been running them for a few weeks with work now virtually, and with the studio that I normally work with as well. And it actually works quite well doing it virtually. It's surprising how quickly we adjusted to it. But yeah, so it'd be nice to see some people there.
I will be taking the beginner options. Guys, thank you all very much for joining me today. Thank you for those who have signed in to watch and hear us. If you have anything you want us to bring and talk about, please email me. If there's any sort of well-being areas that you want covered. And if you want details on Ken and Laura and Kat, then you can email me and we can put you in touch. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening. And I'll probably be